Welcome to our deep dive into Newark, New Jersey, the city emblematic of America's urban renewal efforts and the center of vibrant community activism. Today, we explore these efforts, transformational yet challenging impacts, highlighting the historical context of urban renewal and its ongoing repercussions on gentrification. Urban renewal efforts in Newark, intended to revitalize the city, have had mixed impacts on its residents, contributing to both positive developments and ongoing gentrification challenges. These things have impacted Newark historically and remain consistent in current times. Urban renewal in Newark began in the mid 20th century around 1949, aiming at transforming the city into a thriving urban hub. Significant projects included the New Jersey Performing Arts Center and the Prudential Center. However, as of July 1967, at the time, urban renewal had displaced approximately 35,000 Black individuals, which constituted 77% of all displacements in a city where only 34.1% of the population was Black. This stark disparity, highlighted by projects such as the construction of the University of Medicine and Dentistry, which led to the extensive demolition and restructuring of the Central Ward, illustrates the racial impacts and community upheaval caused by these policies.
Well, I was the chairman of the Urban Renewal Committee that recommended the construction of the medical school and the center, Rutgers University, which we had envisioned as Newark being the center of education for the state of New Jersey. And at that particular time, as far as the medical school is concerned, many buildings had to be knocked down. And one of the problems was, as was reiterated by some groups, that it was not urban renewal, it was Negro removal, which that certainly was never my intent. My intent was to pick up all this federal money and create one of the finest medical facilities in the country.
Despite Frank expressing that this indeed was not Negro removal and was to build the best facility in the country, 180 acres of land displaced thousands of families. Citizens such as Junius expressed their concerns.
I became involved in the fight against the medical school because I was doing work on relocation problems in Newark. And because I knew there was no place to put anybody, immediately when I heard about a medical school taking, at that time, 200 acres and reduced to 180 acres eventually, I said, there's no way possible the housing supply can absorb this. We didn't know all the details at that point. As a law student, I was involved with a group called VISTA. And so I had some volunteers at my disposal, and we went about proving that there wasn't anywhere to put people. We just took relocation story after relocation story. So that was my first involvement. Now, when it came time to do something about it, many people had started the struggle before me, before I became, because by this time I was in law school. I considered Newark my home, but I was coming here on vacations, summer, spring, whenever I could, and doing whatever I could with INCUP and with other groups as well by that time. So the story got out, and people began demonstrating. There were great demonstrations, great big demonstrations down at City Hall against the Planning Commission, because this was the first focal point, and people were coming out in droves. There was a group called the Black Man's Liberation Army, which is a story in and of itself. And Colonel Hassan had taken the books and thrown them across the room very dramatically, and so more people were coming just to see the drama of what was going to happen at the Planning Commission. But by that time, the system had learned one important thing. They knew how to absorb that kind of struggle. They knew how to absorb that kind of protest. And so by the summer of 1967, most of that had played out, and yet the medical school boundaries were still intact, 180 acres. And it was at that point that the riot occurred.
Fast forward to today. The effects of these urban renewal projects continue to resonate throughout Newark. While some areas have seen economic growth, many residents still face the challenges of gentrification, including increased living costs and displacement. The legacy of activism, as seen in movements such as the Stellar Right rent strike, has fostered continued community engagement and advocacy for equitable urban development.
When we moved into public housing, I moved in it with my 5 children, and the first thing we encountered was the fact that there was no hot water. And then to top that off, I think I was the very first person to move into that particular building. And I went shopping for my family, and I came back and the elevator was broke. The next day I came back and the same thing had happened. The elevator was out of order. And it just, then later it ended up where mosquitoes were eating my kids up because I was on the 7th floor and there was no scream. And I went to the office to complain about the fact that there was no scream. And she told me that the mosquitoes didn't go below the 7th floor. And I said, well, the mosquitoes were eating my kids up. And she said, well, look, the government has run the tests and found that mosquitoes didn't go above the 7th floor, so you can't have a scream. And it was, I guess it was just a whole host of the fact that I couldn't get screams, the fact that here I was in a brand new building, the very first person to move into this building, and finding that there was no hot water. The elevator was constantly broke. And, you know, in the past I was told, because I had other relative and family that lived in other housing projects, that we were told that the people destroy the buildings. And here I found that that was not true, that it was just built with inferior equipment. I just got very angry. And here I was a person that had never been involved in any kind of community action or community involvement. Just the sheer fact that I had to keep the window closed at night to try to keep my kids from being bitten by mosquitoes, and not having to heat water on the stove made me so angry. I started talking to the other tenants in the other building and beginning to try to demand something to be done about just the insensitive to people's needs. I mean, because, and then I was also told by some of the people that worked there, off the record, that we were never going to have hot water or heat because the system was not built big enough to accommodate all of the buildings that it was supposed to. And so that also just sort of made me even angrier. So that's how I really got to begin to working with the tenants to try to bring about changes. And before I knew it, I was elected president of the Tenant Association.
Newark's urban renewal analysis must consider economic investments and social impacts. The $181 million mainly invested focused on demolishing old neighborhoods rather than fostering new developments, often neglecting the needs of existing communities. The Stellar Right rent strike is a critical case study of how affected residents can organize and demand accountability, leading to improvements in housing policy and community involvement in urban planning processes. New efforts have also been made by Newark's Mayor Ras Baraka with initiatives to combat large corporations from purchasing private homes, as well as the most recent Newark Ownership Revitalization Program, also known as NHRP, which allows residents to buy city-owned properties. In concluding our exploration of Newark's urban renewal, it's evident that the city's path forward must carefully balance and develop with inclusivity. The history context provided by the sources like Rise Up Newark enriches our understanding of how deeply urban policies impact communities' dynamics and underscores the importance of inclusive and thoughtful urban planning. As Newark continues to evolve, the lessons from its past are crucial in shaping a more equitable and inclusive future. Thank you for watching. Please refer to the description box below for those who are interested in exploring our analysis sources further. Here you'll find a comprehensive list of all primary and secondary sources we use, from historical archives to contemporary reports and local voices. This list will provide deeper insights into the topics we've discussed and offer resources for those looking to study this compelling subject further. Thank you.
Doing all those things. She's walking.